Hey everyone, and welcome back. As promised, I think we're going to start working on blocking out the back of the hair again. And actually not blocking out, that's probably not the right word because that's kind of what we've already done. But now what I would like to do is start adding in the actual strands for the hair. And I'm going to try something that I've done maybe only once or twice before, but I'm essentially just going to create a bunch of larger shaped tubes to kind of start forming the hair. And then once we kind of get all those blocked in, again there's that word, all those hairs, those tubes put into place, once that's finished, we can start adding more details to each of those individual tubes. So stuff like using the pinch brush and the dam standard and that sort of thing, so that we can add a little bit of texture and more shape to those. But right now, I'm just of course using the curved tube snap brush, one of my favorite brushes, and I am using it in conjunction. If you look over at the left side of the screen in the stroke palette, I'm using that with the size modifier. And with that, it is creating that tapering effect that you see happening as it goes from a larger down to a sharper shape at the bottom of the tube. Now I am creating all of these shapes, at least for right now, in just a single subtool. And how I'm doing that is I just draw out my curve, the tube kind of fills that curve and applies all the modifiers that I have on it. And then once I finish that, have it in a decent enough place, I just tap on my mesh with my pen, or you can just, oh, there's a little freak out there, or you can just click on your mesh, whatever you want to do, and that will delete the curve. And if you don't have that option available to you, if you just can't get it to delete, you can always go over into your curve menu on the left side there, like I have it docked, and you can just click on delete curve. So that's another quick way you can just do it. Keep in mind though, if you are working with a lot of these pieces, and there's our mustache, I'll just go ahead and delete that, get rid of that for good. If we need our mustache back, we can always retrieve it from a previous save. I like to save in multiple versions so that just in case we can always roll back. You know, if we need our mustache back, we can always roll back and go grab it. But I was just about to talk about how you can merge stuff down and lose some subdivision information. So make sure, just be like aware of this and careful. If you look over on the right side of the screen under geometry, you should be able to see all my subdivision levels there. They also, you got all the buttons in there to interact with them, but you know, you got the D key and the Shift D to kind of step up and down through your subdivs. But what I want to talk about is if you're merging multiple subtools together, you can lose some of that subdivision information. So what you want to do, well, it kind of depends on the situation, but for my instance here, I have all these hair tubes, and if I were to make a separate hair tube as a separate subtool, so I had two subtools both containing hair, and I wanted to merge those together with the merge down function, which I use quite often, which is why it's in my quick pop-up menu. Control-Shift-Q to pop that up if you're using my UI. I use that stuff all the time. But if you're merging together like that, using any of these merge functions, you want to make sure that you either have no subdivision levels or the same amount of subdivision levels. So in this case for the hair, I would probably step down to the lowest subdivision level, and over in the geometry palette, I would click delete higher. And what that's going to allow me to do is be able to merge those two shapes together without having to worry about losing any additional information. And now, of course, I did delete the higher subdivs, but in this particular case, I do not need them. I'm actually just using dynamic smooth to kind of get an idea of what these will look like. And right now, you know, I'm still just kind of putting them all into place, so I'm not too worried about the general shape of each hair tube. I'm just trying to get the overall larger shape of the hair to get to a place that I am maybe not happy with right now, but more comfortable with so that I can move forward with it. So keep that in mind. If you're merging stuff, make sure you have the same subdiv levels, and if you really want to keep some of that information and you can't you can't get the same subdivs for some odd reason. Maybe you'd have to subdivide it over like 50 million polys, and you just can't do it. So you can also freeze subdivision levels, and that's also in your geometry palette, and then you can merge down and get those back. You can also use some projection methods to kind of reconstruct those if need be. But looking back at our hair here, this kind of side piece, I'm finally just like, okay, let's delete that and just finally get rid of that forever. Hopefully here soon we can get into some paint. I think we will. Not in this episode for sure, because we want to spend a good amount of time on the hair, getting that into a place where we like it. But here soon we'll start working with some paint for our character, as well as just materials, and I'll show you a few different things for skin, and we can play around with all that. Another thing to keep in mind with subdivs, since we just kind of talked about that, I was talking about in the last episode, if you didn't see that one, I was using the slice curve brush to create the bangs, or the kind of shapes that we have going on there that's going to be our bangs later on for the hair. And with those, I used the slice curve brush. And if you're using the slice curve brush, or if you watched me use it, you probably noticed that I deleted my lower subdivision levels before I did that. So what I did was I would step it up a few subdivs so that it was a bit smoother on the geometry, because I only had one subdivision level, less than 1k polys probably on each of those pieces. And then from there I would slice them. But again, before I would do that, I would delete the higher subdivision levels. And the reason I'm doing that is because your geometry is actually changed when you use a slice curve brush. The clip brushes just kind of smush it all up to where you want it to go. Wherever you slice it, it's wherever you clip it, it's not a slice. The slice curve brushes, or any of the slice brushes, actually change your geometry. They change your topological flow. So when you do that, just be aware that you have to delete your delete higher or lower subdivision levels, I should say. So what I like to do is step up a few, click delete, delete lower subdivs over in the geometry palette. On the right side is where I have it docked, that's in the tool palette. And then from there I'll be able to create a slice, and then I would close holes and then Z-remesh them real low. But that's the essential formula for how I created those bangs. It was pretty quick and easy. And now for this hair in the back, we're of course using back to the curved tubes brush to kind of block these all in and get them all into place. Now you probably noticed me using some inflate on this hair. What I'm trying to do is use the least amount of tubes that I can possible to kind of represent this geometry. So I inflate the hair tubes, and I'm trying to get this hair to be represented in the least amount of parts possible while still having this kind of interesting look. And I'll maybe, I was talking about using the pinch brush to add some texture. In the past I've also used, creasing, yeah. So just using the Z modeler brush and creasing a bunch of these parts and pieces. That's the basic strategy for this hair. If you want to see a similar technique, you can go watch some of the videos for my aerial character sculpt. I did pretty much the same thing, and we're going to try to replicate that here for D.Va. We'll see how it turns out. For those hair pieces, I was using a lot larger chunks, and I think that was maybe more effective. So we'll keep messing with this hair, and we'll see where we get. In the next episode, I'll play with it a little bit more, and then from there, you know, we can give D.Va some breasts, because she hasn't had any this whole time. Like I said, androgynous character. So we can try to get closer to that character and start trying to just pull it all together. So I will see you guys in the next episode, where we can start messing with the hair some more, and like I said, get into kind of painting and working on these breasts and everything else. I will see you guys next time.